listener production.
Hi, Natarsha Belling with you and welcome to the afternoon edition of The Briefing. Coming up in our deep dive, the sweeping new rules and regulations for cosmetic procedures. This week, the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, or AHPRA, announced new guidelines putting dodgy operators on notice. So what do the changes mean and how will they be enforced? That chat coming up. But first, let's check the afternoon headlines this Thursday, the 5th of June. Venezuela is one of a number of nations that have hit back at the US president's sweeping new travel bans. Donald Trump says the US will now prohibit people from 12 countries, including Afghanistan and Iran, from travelling to America to, quote, protect Americans from dangerous foreign actors. A number of other countries, including Venezuela, will also face heightened restrictions. Its interior minister has slammed the move, saying, quote, being in the United States is a great risk for anyone, not just Venezuelans. President Trump has justified the travel bans because of recent events.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them.
Senior coalition members have lashed out at controversial comments made by former Liberal Party leader Alan Stockdale. The 80-year-old told a meeting of the New South Wales Liberal Women's Council that women were, quote, sufficiently assertive and the party may have to protect men's involvement, suggesting they may have to look at male quotas. It comes after the Liberals' worst election defeat in its party history in May, as new leader Susan Lee tries to rebuild. National Senator Bridget McKenzie joining the chorus of outrage over Mr Stockdale's comments.
It was a shocking comment. I think it's time for Alan to head back to the Melbourne Club, have a stiff whiskey and chat with the old boys about what went wrong.
Mr Stockdale claims the comments were made in jest. And Perth has banned the hiring of e-scooters after a tourist allegedly hit and killed a 51-year-old man. The 24-year-old British woman was allegedly riding the scooter while under the influence of alcohol when she allegedly hit and seriously injured the man, who later died in hospital. The woman is now facing a number of serious charges. It's believed the ban on the e-scooters is temporary. Now it's time to get into our deep dive on the new crackdown on Australia's cosmetic industry. We chat with Dr Jack Zoumaras, a specialist plastic surgeon, on what these new rules mean for injectables and procedures, the new age restrictions, and also how to choose a safe and reputable operator. Dr Jack, thanks so much for joining us. Can we talk about these new rules and regulations that have been released by the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency?
Yes, absolutely. So these AHPRA guidelines, which is essentially the regulator that regulates doctors, nurses, other allied health people such as physiotherapists as well as dentists, they've been looking at the cosmetic industry since there's been a lot in the media uncovered by some investigations with, I guess, dodgy cosmetic practices involving surgery. And those surgery regulations came about 2 years ago. And now, as AHPRA has told us, they're looking at the cosmetic injectable side of things as well. So the actual pathway or the new regulations were dropped the day before yesterday, and I think people have till September the 1st to comply now.
So what are some of these new rules? And this is specifically targeted, correct, to the cosmetic industry?
Yeah, correct. So whoever is providing cosmetic services, particularly injectables. So they've already regulated who's providing cosmetic surgery. So this is an expansion for those providing cosmetic injectables, specifically such as trade names not known as like Botox and other fillers and things like that, which are neurotoxins and injectable treatments. And so they apply to anyone that is injecting those substances. So surgeons like myself, other doctors, other practitioners, nurses, nurse practitioners, as well as dentists.
So in regards to why this industry has been unregulated for so long, you mentioned earlier that this comes on the back of some pretty serious confronting investigations that have exposed some dodgy operators within the cosmetic industry. And the bottom line is they give everyone a bad name.
Yeah, correct. And look, overall, everyone is very ethical and above board, and they've got their appropriate training. But you're absolutely right. There are a subset, and especially in the cosmetic surgery space and also cosmetic medicine space over the last 5, 10 years that have basically, I guess, are in there pretty much maybe not having the appropriate training or maybe doing things that are not standard. So in Australia, our health system is very good and our standard of care has been really good. But the problem is there's a lot of noise out there. I mean, me as a plastic surgeon, I kind of know who's qualified or what to look for. But as a consumer, I can imagine how hard it can be. Like you're walking on the street and you go to any shopping center and you can get an injectable. Likewise with surgery, and you don't know who's a qualified surgeon and who's not and how much training they've had. So I can see that there's been a lot of noise from that point of view. So it definitely needed to be regulated.
So, Dr. Jack, you make a great point there. You're a professional. You've been in this industry for a long time. You're going to be able to pretty quickly identify the great reputable operators and practitioners and the dodgy ones. As a consumer, how do I ensure that I get the right service?
Yeah, and this is what's hard, and this is why it's good with some of these new regulations for the non-surgical side that's coming out from 2 days ago. So essentially, when you advertise for these services or have them in your clinic or your rooms or wherever you're doing your treatment, you have to have listed your name and your AHPRA medical registration number or nurse registration number or dental registration number. That way people can look you up. But beyond that, what they have said is that if you're a newly qualified nurse or dentist, you have to be working at least a year before you're going to embark on the cosmetic side of things from an injectable point of view. And they also said that you have to do a training in the anatomy and physiology of the injectable treatment, which is fantastic. So then at least the minimum standard is that they would have to comply with a educational program. And they said it's definitely not going to be just a weekend course. And unfortunately, in the past, you would potentially just have to do a weekend or a week course to then be able to get the injectable and use it.
So in regards to exactly how this will be enforced, I mean, this is a game changer. This is great that finally regulations are coming in. One may argue they've been a long time coming, but how will they be enforced?
Yeah, look, great question. I think it relies a lot on obviously the ethical person of the practitioner, obviously educating the public. So doing this podcast with you today and media outreach with it. I think AHPRA, when they did the surgical guidelines to ensure that a surgeon would do surgery, believe it or not just someone who's not a surgeon, they had a task force of certain people within AHPRA. I think they had some funding to actually look at people's sites, and they also have a cosmetic surgery hotline if something was to go wrong to air not grievances, but to maybe report people that they weren't sure doing the right thing. And I think they're doing something similar on the non-surgical side. They're going to be looking at certain clinics. And I am aware that they've already approached 100 clinics around Australia before this, saying that they're probably in breach of what they're doing now in terms of advertising. So I guess that's how it's going to happen. Some of the societies that I'm a member of, the Aesthetic Society and Plastic Surgery Society, are holding webinars and sessions about how to comply or how to make sure your practice complies. So I think those are how it will happen. But ultimately, because there's so many practitioners out there, I think it'll be very hard to regulate every single one of those, I guess, to police it, to answer your question.
So, Dr. Jack, in regards to you just mentioned there about advertising, as part of these new regulations, the authorities are going to crack down on advertising to certain Australians, especially under the age of 18. Can you unpack exactly what those new regulations are?
Yeah, of course. And I think that's great. I actually never knew that they could advertise to under 18. So I know in the surgery space, because obviously I do more surgery, we've never been allowed to advertise, and nor we never do that anyway, to under 18-year-olds. Because a lot of the time when you're having cosmetic surgery or any surgery for that matter, even if you're having your gallbladder out or an appendix, you need to get parental consent if you're under 18. So with these guidelines, you're not allowed to advertise your injectable services to anyone who's a minor. So they've got to be 18 and over. If for some reason the minor needed an injectable, but God knows why, to be honest, then there would have to be a week cooling off period from the advertising point of view. Likewise, you're not allowed to use influencers during your advertising. The before and after, I believe, will be the same as surgery. It has to be standardized before and after, and you can't use influencer marketing and have music and, well, I guess, to trivialize the cosmetic injectable. Because even though it is just an injectable and it is kind of a lunchtime treatment, that's how it's been marketed in the past, it's still a procedure. It's like you're going in for a vaccine. It's still a procedure. You got to get details from the patient, understand if there's any allergies, you've got to use sterile or clean technique before injecting. So there's still those set of standards that need to occur. And I guess maybe from the outside looking in, if I wasn't a doctor, take my doctor hat off, maybe it looks like that it wasn't marketed that way. It was just like, you go in almost for a haircut to have an injectable. And also on the injectable regulation that I didn't touch on before, apart from having the 12 months course, or I'm not sure what it's going to be, and having the experience, each state also can potentially have further regulation. So you have to do a screening, maybe potentially a psychological screening, because right now a nurse can inject an injectable, but a doctor has to do a consultation. And that consultation is much like we're doing now, has to be an audio-visual consultation. And I think in the past, the regulator was worried that a lot of these audio-visual consultations were being under a minute and being prescribed that way for under a minute.
So, Dr. Jack, talking about age restrictions under the age of 18, what are the current regulations with injectables? So what are the age restrictions? I can go and get an injectable if I'm under the age of 18, if I get written consent. Is that correct from a carer or a parent? And how is that properly checked?
Yeah, look, I think that is the case. I think it might even be 16 or 17, the legal age for consent from a medical procedure point of view. I mean, for one, I can't comment on it. Like I said, it was news to me because I've never injected anyone under 20. And I definitely have seen more people in their 20s approach for injectables because it's just so in the media these days compared to like 5 years ago. But I've never actually had to treat anyone under 18. So I never actually knew that people were advertising to under 18-year-olds. So I guess you treat it like any procedure. So from my point of view, exactly. Normally, if you got someone under the age of 17, 16, we would do 2 medical consultations prior to treatment and obviously have a parental, if you don't need parental consent, at least have a parent that understands what you are doing. So they've got a consent, even though they don't need a legal consent, that they've got someone else consenting the process that they're doing with the practitioner.
So, Dr. Jack, as you mentioned, if I am an ordinary person that doesn't have any experience or knowledge in the cosmetic or surgical industry, am I walking in to get an injectable or a cosmetic procedure? What should be my checklist?
I think the first thing you should do is obviously research the clinic. Is the clinic been around for a long time? Do they have a doctor on site or a doctor off site? Because there's still a lot of good injectors that are nurses and they've got a lot of experience. And you just got to work out if they've been in the industry for a long time. Are they reputable in terms of have they presented at conferences? Are they part of a larger clinic or are they isolated on their own? That's what you can do just with your research, I guess, online. Then you can go to the AHPRA website and just check that practitioner to see if eventually we'll be able, from September onwards, we'll be able to check whether they've done the course for cosmetic injectable. AHPRA haven't said what that's going to involve, but they did say that it's going to involve a series of coursework. So then you'll be able to check whether they've, I guess, got the condition that they've done the course for injectables. So that will be the things that you can check. But between now and September, I think it's just asking people, referral from your GP, doing research online, comparing different types of clinics, seeing if they're doctor-led, nurse-led. And if they are nurse-led, how long have they been injecting for? Did they have a lot of experience? And do they also have backup for a doctor if something was to go wrong? Because even though it's extremely rare, you can get allergies, you can get botulism, even though it's extremely rare, from neurotoxin, Botox in other words, or from dermal fillers, for example, that can cause skin necrosis, or tap on wood, very rarely bleeding that can lead to blindness. When they're just going to make sure they've got the right backup if that was to happen, because there's some time that you've got that you can still potentially reverse or treat something that was to go wrong. And is there a follow-up service? Are the people getting injections going to be followed up? So you can look at that. So I guess to summarize, that was a bit of a long-winded answer, is you can check the AHPRA website, just do your own due diligence in terms of researching whether they're reputable or not, and make sure they've got like a follow-up aftercare service. I would say they're the 3 things.
And Dr. Jack, in regards to, you mentioned these new regulations don't come into force until September. If you are someone that has had serious side effects or aren't happy with the procedure you've had, or if you are concerned someone may allegedly be operating in quite a dodgy practice, it's bad for everyone in the industry. Where can you go to report someone that you're concerned about?
Yeah, I think like anything in life, I think if you've got hopefully you've got a good rapport with the injector that's injected you or the clinic, you should probably approach them first that you're not happy. If you're not getting anywhere with that, then I think AHPRA has got a complaint service. And also in New South Wales, at least, because I'm in Sydney, the Healthcare Complaints Commission, you can make an anonymous complaint against the practitioner. And then that practitioner will then be asked by the AHPRA to provide details around that consultation. And then there'll be a remedial process if necessary. But I do understand that there is a cosmetic surgery hotline through AHPRA as well for surgery, but I'm not sure yet whether that's going to apply also for injectables.
We appreciate your time, Dr. Jack. Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was Dr. Jack Zoumaras, a specialist plastic surgeon. And that's it for this episode of the afternoon edition of The Briefing. We'd love you to subscribe or follow us on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Natarsha Belling. Thanks for your company.